So, what do you think about? No, not that. I'm sorry. So, what are your teaching methods in that class? Do you try to make the class interesting and innovative?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of classes in probably in most disciplines, but if first of all, if you think about pedagogy, just sort of teaching and how people learn a lot more by doing than they do, by listening. Apparently, in every thought piece about this, the least effective way to deliver education is lecture, straightforward lecture. And of course, all disciplines do a fair amount of that, but I know that when I came to Furman, I was particularly aware of that. I was given class sizes that were manageable. If you're in larger institutions, sometimes you teach very large class sizes and there's not much personalization. But the other aspect of that is how much involvement where you can actually pay attention and provide feedback is there. And I was convinced from the beginning that in entrepreneurship, it's beyond anything that I actually delivered or typically deliver, which is there's really a lot more about doing than there is about talking about it. So that's why I was saying that if in the first class that we teach, it's not only the concepts but the development of a business plan. If we develop another class, it really needs to be much more activity. So what I do, and even in the basic class though, is that the ideas are often learned more by exercises or by bringing in speakers. So that class has always been a real amalgam of teaching methods, everything from straightforward lecture to students commenting on things, to students doing exercises in innovation and the ideation, generating new ideas, and then interaction with practitioners. So we typically, I should think Dr. Clemens has done that the last couple of years, is every other week we have a visitor, at least one, and we'll try to orchestrate those to make different points. Another subject, let's say, particularly, at least in the United States, that fits into that class is intellectual property, so patents, trademarks, what am I trying to say? Copyrights, patents, trademarks, and copyrights. And that so we bring in intellectual property attorneys, and they interact with those. And I actually I used to take them to what was called Innoventure, which was a Greenville area symposium that was about 2 days long, where a lot of the entrepreneurs in the area would get together, and the students, I would mandate that they had to show up for 3 hours each of a couple days and meet with local entrepreneurs. Frankly, meeting with people and listening to them and their stories is every bit as valuable or more as much anything I can say in class. So, like I say, it's a real mix of techniques, I think, that makes entrepreneurship meaningful.
Yes, thank you very much. Do you think about what you do, not in terms of contents, but in terms of how you make students actually do the work by... So, for example, in my media history, my professor would give us a 4-minute break during the 2 sessions of the class, because he thinks that it's healthy to just stand up and then do something and then go back. It will make students more focused on the class, and actually the brain will work better, I think.
Makes sense.
Yes. So, what do you think about physical movement of students during class, for example, and the use of sticky notes, the use of the board, and just like more interactive relations.
Okay. Interesting question, because all my thoughts about that have culminated in our business core. Now, this doesn't sound like entrepreneurship, but in our business core, we realized a couple of years ago that we needed to put even more of that in there. And I've always subscribed to it in the entrepreneurship class. Students need to, it's just how entrepreneurs work. If you actually go to any entrepreneurial center, you'll see the walls. Usually you can write on all the walls. You can seriously,
Yes.
and you go to the one downtown, and the whole building was built that way, so the entrepreneurs could always be, every time they turn around and say, "I got an idea," and they could write on the board. The other guy could respond, and you can walk around the space, and everything's written on.
Yes.
So what we did in our business core last year is we asked the university to come in and basically paint. Actually, I got this idea from Dr. McLean in the art department because I went to his office and he had his walls painted with something that he could just scribble on the walls and then erase it, just like the dry erase boards in our classroom.
Yes.
So our entire facility or room where we teach the business block now, all the walls are like that and they're framed around the outside, and we have students routinely, we say somebody comes up with an idea and we'll throw them the dry erase marker and say, all right, write it over there and let us know and let's talk about it. Or we'll put groups of people and divide them up, and 3 or 4 of them we'll give them a quick question and then they'll come to some answers, or sometimes it takes a lot of time. But anyway, I think what you described is exactly what is needed, and that's what the entrepreneurial world has understood that forever. I think it's the rest of us that have been a little bit behind.
Yes, that's a really good point. I'm glad that you have an open mind about that, because I know that there are some professors who, maybe that idea is kept novel to them, and I really like some classes that I just saw. Like what they do is that they try to make all the table, all the chairs in a round circle, and then the teacher also sit so that we can. It's kind of debunk the hierarchy between the teacher and students, and it makes students and teachers more interactive and more equal, I guess, and democratic, and it can bring on a lot of discussions. I think.
Yeah, and actually, if you think about it in the entrepreneurial world, what you just said was it has a nice idea there. Yes. Is that it's not usually we often want to give credit to the smartest guy in the room, just an expression, or somebody's there and you give deference to somebody because they've had success at something. Yes. Most entrepreneurial ideas don't succeed because this guy came up with it and he's going to come up with the next one. It's a group effort usually, or there's a lot of serendipity, sort of accidentalness that happens, and you stumble on good ideas that actually work with teams of people and these loose flow of ideas, and you sort of have to diverge before you converge on something that is meaningful. And that's so I think you're really right. The hierarchy doesn't serve you well in that world.
Yes. Thank you very much for all the answers, and I think they're really good. And yes, I think that is my last question.
Okay. Well,
so
thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for joining the interview.
Oh, thanks.
Yes.